welcome back to the Found Frequency podcast. I am so fucking excited to have you here today. The energy is like bursting at the seams. Things are speeding up in my world at such a rapid pace. If you haven't been keeping up, you're in for a real treat. Okay. The next few months are just full of so many surprises. But at the time of this recording, the reason I am bursting at the seams, the time of this recording, it is Wednesday, March 18th. In 24 hours, I will be hosting my live masterclass, Dare to Desire. And I'm so fucking excited. It's going to be at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And truly, this is not even just going to be one of my energetic portals are fucking fire, but this is live. This is like you get to see my face, I get to see yours, right? It's not just another training, it's a space where you get in the room so you can reconnect to what you actually want. You start moving, towards your desire instead of your fucking default setting, right? You stop circling life and start creating. And I'm so excited to share all of my knowledge with you. If you cannot attend live and you're super interested, like I only want women in the room that are like, fuck yes, this is my space. No worries. If you register, I'll pop it in the show notes. If you register, you'll still get the recording. So that's not a big deal. Because this conversation is really going to open something so powerful, and I just can't wait to share it. And I've been, behind the scenes on so many special things that I will share with you all of them on the masterclass. But obviously, people in Dare to Desire get first dibs on all the special things that I've been creating. So. One of my absolute favorite things that's been happening in my world is being in these different portals and these different groups. And right now, I'm going to start bringing you different conversations with women who are not just talking about expansion, right? They're actually living it, they're breathing it, they're doing it every single day, so that I feel like this is going to be so valuable for this audience because you're not just going to see my expansion. And I'm sure you would have seen it's coming up nearly on a year from when I started this podcast, which is insane to me. What can happen in such a short amount of time in the grand scheme of things, a year is like nothing. But I'm going to be bringing you conversations of these powerful fucking women, right? So that you see what becomes possible for women everywhere, right? Including yourself. That is the point. That is why I'm here. That is what the Fallon frequency is all about. Women doing this deep inner work, right? Saying yes to their truth, yes to their soul, yes, right? Women who are creating powerful ripple effects into the world and in the lives of others, most importantly. So today I am super excited because I am diving into a conversation that I know so many of you are craving, even if you don't want to admit it. And we're talking about intimacy, okay? Receiving. We're talking about feminine power. We're talking relationships and what actually means to feel deeply, deeply in tune with your body, but deeply alive, right? In your own life. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Sasha from Awakened Intimacy. She is a guide for high achieving women who are really ready to stop performing, at life and start experiencing depth, like real depth and connection and real abundance. So let's go ahead and dive in. Awesome. I am so excited to have you on the Fallon Frequency podcast, Sasha. Let's go ahead and get into it. So just for the audience, just so they have a reference, Sasha and I met just this past month in an epic, what would you call it? A mastermind?
Yeah.
Yeah, a challenge mastermind. And, it's one of those things when you meet each other, meet your tribe, you just kind of click instantly. So I'm so very excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. It's so exciting to be sitting with you and joining you today.
Yeah, so exciting. Okay. Well, I would love for you to, give us a bit of background onto what you're working with women, right? Specifically from what I know, you're working with high achieving women, right?
That's right.
Why don't you explain a little bit about exactly what you do, and then we can dive deeper into the conversation there.
Great. So I work with high achieving women who want to be more connected to their own feminine power. A lot of women feel like I have things figured out in this this arena of my life, or I'm getting what I want here, but then there's other places in life where maybe we're not getting what we want. And oftentimes that has me, when I work with women, I notice that they'll say, like, this thing is working really well, and I don't know how to translate that to this area. So I support women in looking at what are the patterns and the conditioning that you have that's blocking you from accessing your full feminine power? Because if we can engineer it in one place, if we can learn in one arena how to be more connected to our own power, we can then learn how to translate that into every area of our life. So, for example, if we're feeling more connected to our own power in business, but we're not seeing that in relationship, or we have an amazing relationship, but we're not seeing that in business, there are ways to kind of translate that across. And I support women to know themselves really deeply and find those blocks and move them and um, be able to create the life of their dreams.
I love that. I love that so much. And it's so true, right? Well, I feel like it spills over, right? If we're not kind of balanced in one area, not even balanced, that's not the right word, but like if like you said, relationship, right? If that's kind of struggling, it's going to eventually, right, spill over, especially if they're running their own businesses and things like that. I wanted to ask you, because I know did you before work with couples? Is that something that you,
Yes.
yeah.
So my husband Moritz and I, we actually met through, both of us were already coaches before we met. And early on in our relationship, he said, we're not going to be able to get, we're not going to be able to not work together. Like we won't be able to avoid this. And I was like, no, 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 we're not going to have a business together. Like that's hard. Like certain kinds of people do that, but it's not us. I was really unwilling to dream about that. And he was like relentless. He was like, this is so clearly something we have to do. We might as well not spend 5 years avoiding it, but just dive right in. This is just the person he is. Um, and
So
I listened. I acknowledged that what he said might be true, even though it was uncomfortable for me at the time. And we do still offer couples coaching. It's not my central offer at the moment, but we do still love doing two-on-two private coaching for couples, and we really find that it's such important work. And we love the couples that come to us. It's a powerful time in someone's life to support them in realigning in their relationship. And so it's something that we really value, and the people that come to us and hire us for that really value it too.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Because I was thinking with your line of work as well, if you think about high achieving women, super driven women, right? They tend to be maybe a bit far in the masculine,
Mhm,
sometimes.
mhm.
So really feeling into even like their own relationship, but their own intimacy with themselves, right? You know,
Absolutely.
like,
Yeah. I mean, so my background is actually in sexuality, and I don't know if you even know this about me, but surprise,
no,
I'm
I
a trained
didn't.
midwife. So I had a background. I learned in my 20s this amazing sexuality practice called orgasmic meditation that I did for a long, long time, 18 years now. My
Wow.
husband and I still practice that together. But I was teaching adults about sexuality from very early on in my personal development journey. Like that was kind of my doorway in, was like, this is the most important thing, is that connection to the body and connection to listening to desire and really like trusting what we can feel in our bodies and how that helps us to make every decision we ever need to make in life. And really, like, my husband and I, that's how we do everything. We really do our whole lives by feel. And
I
um
love that.
yeah. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, so masculine, feminine. So that practice that we learned, had me start to understand and then teach how there's masculine and feminine in all of us. I think anyone that's listening to your podcast or connected to the worlds that you and I kind of dance in is like, oh yeah, of course, masculine, feminine. And I think looking at how that comes up in our own expression can be challenging, because sometimes we really associate masculine characteristics with like things that are like more butch, or like things that men do, or things that are like characterized by these external qualities, or maybe even like things that we would call type A in a woman, or like
Yes.
controlling, right? And then we're like, I want to be more feminine, I want to be more in my flow. There's this um like marketable side of femininity that a lot of women are like, yeah, I want to be more surrendered. I want to let go of my masculine and be more in my feminine, which is a beautiful goal and desire. And I think a lot of women who are at the beginning of their personal development journeys, that's kind of where they come in, is like, I see where I'm tend towards my masculine and I want to be more in receiving. And in my own journey and the what I teach with women that I work with and the couples that we work with as well, it's really about um, noticing all the places that we block receiving. And so,
Mm.
um, in the, one of the core elements that I do in the programs that I teach are about the 7 blocks to feminine power. And so, one piece of that is really about, well, one piece that comes up in many of those blocks is about where we are not only under practiced in receiving, but it's very confronting for most women to slow down and receive. We would much rather, it's more vulnerable, right? We would
Yep.
much rather be in the role of like, let me provide something for you, let me help you, let me focus on what's happening over there. And it can be really uncomfortable and feel really naked. I think as a woman, we can feel very exposed when we're like, now I have to actually let this in, even though maybe I don't like the feeling of allowing this in, right? Like a communication from a man who you love, that you respect, and you're in relationship with, who respects you, and he's telling you the truth, and you're like, "Ooh, this is uncomfortable." It's uncomfortable to
Oh.
hear the truth, and I have to open to receive it because it's what I wanted. And now here I am, and it's stretching me, right? It's showing me a new part of myself, and so I think there's this like Hollywood idea of like, I'm going to be more in my feminine. And it's like, I'm going to wear flowy dresses and I'm going to do, this performed feminine. And actually, it's really more about the discomfort and the messiness of being in the truth of, can I be vulnerable enough to stay open when I'm uncomfortable with what's happening, or when I feel like I don't look good in what I'm learning about myself, or in the example of like with me and a partner, like if he's reflecting something to me that's hard to hear and I'm like, "Ooh, I have to slow down." I feel myself like wanting to get defensive, and I have to actually like allow myself to feel and really receive what's coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think I'm laughing to myself because I definitely, for a long time, was very heavily in the masculine. And like you said, with the marketing, I was kind of pulled in trying to be more feminine, like,
Mhm.
like airy fairy. But what I've really found is it's both, right? You're always dancing between both. And
Totally.
certain seasons, you might lean on one more than the other, and
Right.
that's okay too. I think
Totally.
sometimes people get this thought in their head that it's like it has to be one or the other, which is like totally obviously not the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love what you said there, because women, right, we're nurturers by nature, like,
Yeah.
and we're givers, and it's not necessarily a bad trait unless you maybe are giving from an empty cup. I always talk about overflow, but you
Right.
talked about basically, I think from what I saw, turning too much into receiving plenty, right? Is that your
Yeah.
kind of main message?
Yes.
And I really love that, because
Right.
if you want to go into that, like what really shifts for a woman when she stops apologizing, right, for who she is?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this was so much like my own personal journey was really being told from a very young age that what I was feeling and how I was expressing what I was feeling was made other people uncomfortable.
Oh,
And so getting this messaging, and then it turns into your own voice, like those things that get said to you when you're young, you internalize them, and you don't even have to be that young, you can be in your
yeah.
20s and you can still internalize something. I'm
You said what?
Yeah, yeah. You can do it at any age, I suppose. But I think some of those that really like stick with us come from a very formative time when we're still exploring like, who am I in the world and what happens when I express this way. And then we learn really early on what feels safe to do and what doesn't feel safe to do. And then we sort of like make that a hard, fast rule. So yeah, so a lot of us women, I would say 100% of the women I've ever worked with, I've yet to come across a woman who doesn't either feel like the world's told her that she's too much, or there's a place where she feels like she's not enough and she needs to like do something different in order to get her needs met, in order to be seen, or in order to have safety, or in order to, um, have relationship in the way that she envisions for her life, or to be the woman she wants to be, even.
Yeah.
So this story of too much or not enough, in my experience, they're very connected.
Mm.
And that's something I could go into more deeply, but I want to talk about my story, which was really about feeling like my emotions were too much. And I was like, I'm gonna have to do a lot of therapy. Like, I'm really broken. There's something wrong with me that I'm crying all the time. Like, there's something with like all of this energy in my body that like needs to come out my eyes every day. Like, what is happening? Like, why can't I? All these other people seem to have it together and I don't. Um, and I learned that there was another way to move energy through my body. And I didn't stop crying or like cry less or like get into something where I was like, oh, I'm now that's like that part's going away. But um, I learned that that was my gift, right? The sensitivity
Mm.
that I have and the amount that I can feel is really my capacity. Like at this stage in my journey and what I've learned, it's like, wow, I had a massive capacity and I just had no idea. So
Yeah.
I was like comparing myself to people who were performing something and being
Mm.
like, they look put together. She's doing it right. Like she's doing this. And I actually was like, I can feel the person over there. I can feel the person over there. I can feel everything around me. And my then digestion and like interaction with the world as this woman who's an empath and a feeler is like what I'm bringing is scary for other people because they have to confront a part of themselves, right? It was like I was
Mm.
actually expressing something so honestly that most women had worked very hard to tamp down or shut down or turn off or numb or whatever, right? We have all of these wonderful ways like scrolling on our phones, right? um,
Yeah.
to dissipate from everything that we're feeling. And I wasn't doing that. And so then I was comparing myself to the women who were like, oh, it's like, it's okay, it's put together. And then I had some incredibly wonderful women who had walked the path ahead of me and said, there's nothing wrong with you. And
Mm.
this is actually a brilliant gift. And what you have to bring to the world is so needed. And so it started to help me learn to, it's not just approve with my head, but it was like learn a new way to look at what was happening inside of me and how I was working with it. And that was helped, what helped me make the shift from, oh no, I'm too much. I have to like be less so that a man won't be afraid to be in relationship with me or a partner, a potential partner won't be afraid to like be with all this, but be like, I need to rise and be as big as I possibly can be so that the
Mm.
person that will match with me will also be, as big as he can be, that his expression, I want that too to be at its fullest capacity and potential. And I don't want somebody who's like, not playing as their full selves or playing full out, right?
Yeah.
It's really easy to want that for others, but it's much harder to be in the vulnerability of doing that ourselves. And so that really had me make that shift where I said, like, okay, the right people are going to actually say, like, woo, that's a lot. And I'm so curious about it. Tell me more, that like they felt drawn to what I was bringing into the world when I stopped rejecting it in myself. And that part was really a practice. That didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like, oh, I got a
Rarely
great
does.
color pill. And then suddenly, like, it was so easy. Like, it's still a practice that um, I have to consciously be connected to every day of my life. And that's never going to go away. And I think that's part of the difference for me too, is I haven't like the solution for me is like leaning more into a practice of like, how can I bring even more of that out? That thing that I'm like, oh, I don't know if the world can handle it. It's still like, oh, that's actually where my most brilliant ideas come from, right? So I want to um, have reverence for that part of me and bring that to the altar of my life um, and honor the like massive brilliance that's coming through. And it's like sometimes I'm like, it's just not even me. Like it's something else outside of me, and I'm just willing to get out of the way. I think that's very much what a lot of women who want to be in connection with their feminine are feeling is like, oh, how do I get out of the way for that thing that is chaotic and messy and who knows where it comes from to come through me and be able to be expressed.
I love that so much. And I love even what you said there. It wasn't until I just want people to recognize the power of being around the right people, right? A couple conversations or whatever it was, you put yourself in a group or we're in a room with women that made you feel okay for your bigness.
Yeah.
versus dimming your light and trying to be like everybody else. And the
Yeah.
beauty here is like, I can just see it through the screen, right? You're shining your bright so light, like so big, you can't help but attract others that want that too, right? You're leading by example. And I just think that's so beautiful because I feel like so many women are just in their heads, right? It's
Mhm.
not like, or they've suppressed their feelings, or they, the conversation that they're having in their head so far down that like they don't even know what they're missing. Like you said, that brilliance coming through, that creative current, but you can't tap into that if you're disconnected from yourself.
Right,
Right.
right.
So
And
it's
I think it's a big edge for most women. Thank you so much for that reflection, by the
yeah,
way.
no, you're
Really
welcome.
glad you see me. Um, I think for most women, it's really scary when we live in a world that really like gives us a lot of external rewarding for being very like connected to the cortex and able to express in a certain way. And so like stepping out of that or stepping into a world where something else is going to be valued is downright scary. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that's like, a lot of women who come to work with me at some point in their first year, they're like, well, I thought this was going to be this, but then when I got in, I realized there was something else I wanted, right? And it's like a reconciling in themselves of like, oh, I'm actually feeling desire to be connected to something that I couldn't have told you was there. And now, not only do I know it's there, but I know I want to be connected to it every day for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Subconsciously, there's always a deeper desire, right?
Yeah.
Leading us somewhere. How would you say, or how can someone, these women that feel trapped, maybe that feel like they don't even know what the next move is, start to really open up to receiving more in the sense of either love in their relationship or just support from another
Mhm.
person? Because I find, at least in my world, which you probably find as well, sometimes it's literally this block from getting support, from not being
Yeah.
the one that does it all, but allowing yourself to receive that. What would you say would be a good way to open up to that?
That's such a good question. I could answer that so many ways. So
Yeah.
many. We could
Take
spend a
it.
whole hour on that.
Yeah, great.
Um, well, because you talked about what did you say? Like, how can she open up to receiving? Is that
Yeah.
what you
So how, like, not just necessarily with love in a relationship, but in
Right.
general, like I
Okay.
found, at least, okay, in my own journey, getting support, especially okay,
Mhm.
the entrepreneur journey. In the beginning, I was like, I got to do the masculine way. I can do this. I'm not less than, I'm going to
Yeah.
do it by myself versus let me learn from people who've walked the path. Let me,
Mhm.
collapse things. Let me not feel guilty for getting support, I guess is
Yeah.
what completely comes to mind. So, what would
Yeah.
you say for that woman?
Well, great. So for me, like one of my, I'm going to bring back the blocks to feminine power. One of the seven blocks to feminine power is the deprivation, and this means starving yourself of food, sex, intimacy, joy, ambition, abundance, or love in order to be liked, to be good, to be appropriate, to stay in control, and
Oh,
ignoring your body. So we're heavily trained to ignore our bodies. We're
oh, yeah.
heavily trained to ignore our hunger and to push it down. And like even in a literal sense, like we get, some I have had conditioning in the past that's like, I'm good for skipping a meal, and like that's not healthy. But there's this like um
Guilty.
reward for taking up less space, right? That is very like culturally ingrained and we don't even realize, like even if you don't have um, an eating disorder, like I think most of us have a hunger disorder. Like we have trained ourselves to ignore the impulse of what does my body want?
Mm,
And then there'll be a certain arena where we're like allowed to have it. And sometimes it's like with food, I'm allowed to have what I want. But with sex, I have to like keep it under control, or I have to like, there's so much managing around our body and our desire. And like, um, one of the things that I've seen women do that is so powerful is to have like a self-pleasure practice, right? And that's not even something I teach. I've just seen women do that in other communities, right? And I love it. I'm here for that. But I think it's like finding whatever your own personal places are that part of your deprivation is running your life or this arena of your life. And in business, that can be like, oh, I can't grow to the next level, like I can't hire a VA because I didn't make, high six figures last year. I only made low six figures. So I need to keep like forcing by myself. And like that doesn't work, right? And
Yeah.
that's just one example, right? So like how we spend money on ourselves is an example of this too, right? Like
Mhm.
what we allow ourselves to invest in. It's so intensely um it's like I think this is one of the hardest ones to teach. It's interesting that like this is the one I pulled out when you talked about receiving because we have such a delicate and intricate relationship with receiving, and we'll do lots of things to keep ourselves from seeing how much we are not willing to receive and how much we are blocking. Um,
Mhm.
so like my husband would be like, sure, let's have a practice and like, let's have sex every day for 30 days. And I would be like, okay, great. I totally want to do that, babe. That sounds so hot. And then the next day I'm like, now I just said yes to this practice. And now I have to like have the experience of like feeling his attention on me when I asked for it and when I wanted it. But it's uncomfortable to be in that receiving. And I think we don't get better at it unless we practice it. So if we stay in the box that says like, I can only want this much, or I can only have, you know, dessert if I've done this, or, it's like whatever the dessert of life is, right? Like food is just such a
Yeah.
literal example. And as women, we all have, I'm convinced, again, we all have some kind of conditioning around our relationship with
I
food,
was just gonna say
how we
conditioning.
use it. But it's true with intimacy. But I'm not just talking about sexual intimacy, although that too, but like intimacy with women, like how we want to be connected to another woman and how much we'll let ourselves receive that. And
Mm.
how much we let ourselves receive the attention from our partner that we ask for. And that you know, what is the benefit of receiving more? Well, we don't know if we're not doing it. So the only way to work on this one is to say, like, I'm going to have a practice of learning how to receive something, right? And I even tell women who are really beginners, I'm like, go and ask your partner to sit with you for 10 minutes and you're not making out, you're not having a deep conversation, you're not forcing anything, right? You're like, I would love for you to sit with me for 10 minutes and I just want to feel your attention on me. And like
Yeah.
maybe you're just sitting in silence, or maybe he's just asking you questions, or maybe you just both have your phones down, right? Like I'm looking at my phone, it's right there. Um, that experience is so profound, but we also have to have the courage to ask for it, which is, that's part of the stretch in reclaiming the power there is that asking for what we want, having that relationship with desire is like it's an
Mm.
edge for all of us. And if we're not practicing it at home with our partner, we can never practice it in our job, right? And if we're not practicing it at work, then we're not working that muscle in that arena either, right? So we need to actually be practicing it everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, 1,000%. Right away when you're talking about this, I'm like, we're so conditioned. And we don't, I feel like sometimes people maybe on their healing journey get so caught up in that I need to heal more or I need to figure out why I'm conditioned this way. And that's
Right.
not really even where I go down. It's like we can recognize that we've got these things that we no longer, maybe it's a habit, right? Or like you said, if they're so used to not receiving, and what I teach, which is exactly what you were just saying, is in order to change that, we've got to do a pattern interruption. We've got to do something completely different, or else we're never going to change because we're staying in the same fucking loop. Right.
Yes. Yes,
So
totally.
I love the partner one because I feel like women, a lot of women probably crave a lot more intimacy. And that's not just like the physical in the bedroom, right?
Right.
That's being in someone's presence,
Yeah.
not distracted, not on your phone, and just being there. And it doesn't have to be this, deep and meaningful, right? Like
Yeah.
but what a great practice. I'm going to do that. My partner is not here. I actually like hanging out with them, so it's good.
Please do it. I would love if you would do
I
it.
will just be
So
like,
fun.
well, we kind of do that. Like one of it, well, maybe I'll be like reading on the couch and he'll be, sitting there. But yeah, I feel like we like each other, which is great.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because you work so closely with couples, would you frame that, relationships are one of the fastest spiritual growth paths because
Mm.
they're mirroring? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my marriage is 100% a crucible for growth.
Yeah.
Like we are like put it all in the fire, like, and I think that's something that we chose like very consciously. And I don't think everyone goes into relationship or long-term commitment in partnership with as much like eyes wide open as, we both were already coaching others on
Yeah.
relationship before we were married to each other. And we both had really been in a practice of a lot of consciousness around communication and relationship style. And like we had both had experiences before we met each other of like being in open relationship and like conscious, ethical, full communication, open relationship, not like, oh, we do whatever we want on the side and we like don't tell about it, but like
Yeah.
really full honesty, like make you uncomfortable, tell the person the truth so much that um you're willing to lose them basically. Like that's really what I live by is like I want to be so honest with you that like even if this truth annihilates the connection, I'd rather be speaking the truth and be living in alignment with that truth than like be in the connection that has me have to pretend or wear a mask or be something that I'm not. So that was something that we really came into our relationship with. And so yeah, in my experience and definitely like the people that work with us, with me, it is such a big arena with a lot available for growth. And I want to say also that like that doesn't always mean that the desire for the level of growth has to be exactly measured the same in both people. I
Mm.
think it's okay to be in a relationship where you're like, I really want to have this relationship be a place where I grow, and your partner might not match that in that moment. And I think there's still work you can do to use the relationship as a place to grow, even if you're not like, okay, well, we both agree to go to therapy and we're going to go do that tomorrow together. And we like have the same desire to invest the same amount of money in that, and like that's not every couple. Um, but you absolutely can use relationship as a place, it's a mirror, I mean, in my experience and opinion, like every relationship in my life is a mirror, even friendship, even um sisterhood, like the women's circles that I run, like it is about like everyone is a mirror for me, right? And anywhere we get triggered by our partner, like what an amazing growth opportunity to see something in ourselves, right? Like when our partner does something that we don't like, that we want to criticize or want to be like, oh, if he could just listen to how I would tell him to do it, he would just do it the right way. And it's like, okay, what in me, right? I
Mm.
always like the metaphor of put down the microscope and pick up the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
That um, if I have my finger pointed at him, I need to look at my own part and like where is there a place where what he's doing is actually showing me something that I do? And it's usually more literal than we want it to be. But it's really easy to get into blame, and for women, internalizing blame is shame, right? But like to use blame and shame to actually avoid confronting how much power we have, how much access we have to our own power. And I'm like, God, relationship is like the number one place to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and for us, something that we really talk about when we work with couples is like commitment, right? That there's so many couples who maybe are not married yet, or maybe are married and are like having some kind of backdoor that they're feeling. And we're like, commit. Like you're here every day, like commit yourself again, like commit yourself fully, lean all the way in. If next week the person isn't there and you're divorced or broken up or whatever, fine. But today you're in the relationship. And so like how can you commit and show up fully? And yeah, that can be such an amazing tool to look at, where am I using X, Y, and Z as like a subtle back door, even though it may not, oh yeah, I'm committed. People get very defensive about that if you ask them about it.
Yes, I bet.
Um, which is reasonable because it's uncomfortable. Like I hope your listeners are uncomfortable hearing me speak. Like that's part of my work in the world is like I try to
Shake
say
it
what
up.
I'm thinking and feeling as much as I can. And like when we're looking at this stuff, especially if we haven't looked at it a lot, but even when we have looked at it a lot, it's uncomfortable. Like it's
Mhm.
sensational. We feel sensation in our bodies. We're like, ooh, that one, like I really wanted to not acknowledge that place where I was a little bit checked out, or like, yes, I'm committed and we're still married, but like I was having this thought about this over here, right? And like using fantasy as an escape, right? And that's another block to feminine power. Um,
Mm.
that we want to be more in relationship to the Disney prince or the rom-com guy or the Bridgerton husband, or the like modern examples, right? The like this what do they call it? Like the spicy romance novel, that's like so in right now. And I'm like, it's interesting because I think women, this is so popular right now because it's when we try to project that fantasy onto our real partner, it's like he's just an average boring guy, right? And it's like, well, that's not the truth, right? The truth of what is like he is a real person, and we're getting away from that person's humanity when we are like, oh, I'm like hungry for just the fantasy version of him, and then like I'm rejecting the real person that's there, and that's a version of not being committed, right? And not like you're cheating on them with the TV fantasy, but connecting with that fantasy as though it were reality keeps you out of acknowledging your own power. And in that place you're like, well, where am I not asking for what I want in relationship? Where
Yep.
am I like, oh, I need to go read this in a spicy book because like I need to have the audacity to be like, this is how I want to be touched to my own partner.
Yeah, it's so true. My God, there's so many things I want to comment on what you just said, but completely like the one thing that just popped in was the triggering, right? When someone's triggered
Yeah.
by their, let's use the partner example. And I do this because I'm like, ooh, like I used to years ago, obviously just be triggered, go down my own doom spiral and not understand it. And being so deep in this world, it's like, ooh, okay, what is this? Where am I still conditioned, or where am I still feeling like a lack there because of what they just reflected back to me?
Yeah.
Right. And it just allows you to go deeper into your power. Like you said, it allows you to recognize it. It's like a gift. Like partners
Yeah.
are constantly giving us like, oh, let's tackle this, let's do that. Uh,
Right.
and yeah, exactly what you said, with the fantasy. I think I speak about this and you'll hear with my upcoming masterclass. But if
Yay.
we don't, I'm so excited. If we don't listen, tune into these desires, right? And it doesn't just have to be in like intimacy, but like, let's say with the relationship, you're then, because you're afraid, right? You're afraid to lose connection with this partner, let's say. So people don't want it.
That's why we withhold all this stuff and like don't
Well,
act
because
in ways
people
that
are
are
scared,
powerful
but it's like,
because
do
we're
you
scared.
understand?
Totally.
But like understanding, I don't think people get this. If you understand, if you basically, you're not losing connection with the partner, but you're losing connection with yourself, which is even worse. So then you're actually in this relationship out of resentment, like that you don't
Totally.
even want to be in because it's not true to yourself. It's like
Yeah.
you're putting yourself in this awful loop.
Yeah. Well,
I,
that's so much why I say like speak the truth that's willing, that would end the relationship because
yes.
really like that's the portal to the next layer of intimacy that we're
Mm,
starving for, right? That's why we're watching all this rom-com and Disney stuff and trying to make our partner into this person and that person because we're like, I actually want a different kind of intimacy and I have a fear that it's not possible. So I
yeah.
have a fear that sharing what's really going on for me or like interrupting that pattern, like you said, is going to obliterate the relationship. And like I'm like, oh, it's like little deaths, right? Like we have to actually allow the old version to die all the way before we can allow something different to be born. And if we never have the courage, to say what we want in the next version, we are powerless to create it, right? But
Yeah.
the power is ours, the freedom and the choice is ours um to bring it to life, but we have to have the courage to like be uncomfortable for a while as we get there. And it's not always, I think we grip onto the old way because we're like, oh, it's like more comfortable to stay back here where it's like really easy and I don't not be confrontational. And actually, like, there's a different kind of pain and cost that's happening there when we're holding on to the old way because ultimately, like, it is not keeping us afloat. We might have a story that it is. And I think there are examples of people who really ignore how much it's like it's going down, but they're like, oh, just like it's fine for another 10 years, right? I think there's a
I'll be
lot of like
fine.
women not working on what they want, creating what they want, having what they want in their business, creating the relationship that they want, even with the man you already have. I'm not saying run away and get a new partner, but like creating the life that you want on account of like, oh, I have to wait until my kids are older. I can't invest money in myself because um because I'm not worth it. I mean, I think so many women have that fear, right? And it's like, can I can I put myself into the worthiness of like I deserve that, right? That
Yeah.
is taking that feeling of I'm too much and being like, wait, this is all of the capacity in me that wants to be converted into real power. And I do deserve to be living that dream of like how I want my life to be and the kind of intimacy I want to be feeling and like really to have my partner turn and look at me and like really see me in the deepest way possible, right? That's 10 times better than the fantasy version.
1,000%. And I feel like also, even just furthering this conversation, I think if we actually allow that depth with our partner, they sometimes they surprise you. Like they're actually, because they're mere, there's a reason I feel like we're attracted to certain people, obviously, in certain relationships. And maybe the partnership you're in actually has so much room for more depth, but you're not showing that. So they're not showing up as that, right?
Right.
So it's like
Right.
almost like do it as a surprise because like you don't even know. You don't even know how far you can go.
Right, absolutely. And I think this is such a good one again for the women who might feel like I want to grow and I'm afraid that my partner won't come with me. Like I've had both versions. I've been in a relationship where I grew and the other person didn't, and I had to let them go. And that was challenging and painful and sad, but like much less challenging, painful, and sad than it would have been for me to continue to shrink myself for the rest of my life on account of somebody who didn't want to grow. Like that would have been worse, right? And so like was there pain in it? Yes, but from that came a growth and also like an increase in my self-worth that in the next relationships I entered, I was like, "Oh, I have a sense of what I'm actually looking for, and now I'm leading in a different way." And so now it's like, oh, now I have the experience of growing, and then like my partner grows and he grows into something even bigger than he imagined was possible. And it's like because he was willing to be inspired by my growth and vice versa, right? He and I are like always doing this. And I think that's what healthy relationship is, right? Like we're constantly seeing each other grow and saying, like, oh yeah, like not in a competition way, but like that is so powerful. And um I'm so moved by like seeing something that you like I maybe thought was possible for him, but he didn't even know was possible for himself and
Yeah.
his own pride and joy and um you know uh his becoming his what's actualization, right, is like inspires my actualization. And I think we get to do that for each other if we choose to.
Yeah, I love that. And it's such a beautiful thing to witness, right? When you're working on yourself and you're doing all these things and you feel like you're becoming this deeper version and then you're watching them rise next to you. It's really
Really?
it's like
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts of this work.
Yeah. Same.
I'd
And
love to
in the
ask.
moments when I was doing it, I just want to say, in the moments when I was doing the rising, it didn't feel like always. Sometimes it does, but for me, it was like it was scary, right? It was like
Yeah,
exhilarating, but like in the like holding onto the roller coaster, but my eyes are closed, But like I'm so glad I got on
but
that
you're still on
feeling.
the ride,
I'm
right?
on the
You
ride
still
and I'm
got
so
on.
glad I got on, right? And like I'm like, great, I can have my eyes closed. I can be nervous about it. I can be like, whoa, I don't know. Huh? But like, wow, thank God I got here. Like, thank God I got into this seat. And I always feel that way, right? I always have that like moment of like thanking myself, thanking God, the universe, right? Something greater than me that helped me into that seat because I don't think we can do it totally by ourselves. I think we need support.
No,
Um,
100%.
anyway, yeah.
No, I love that. And yeah, I think I don't know, I think sometimes, especially if you're new in your journey and for some of the women listening, it's not like we don't feel fear, right? Everyone feels fear. The most successful people feel fear, but they don't let it stop them. Like you said, your eyes are closed, you're fucking gripping that railing or whatever you
Yeah.
call it, little bar, but you're still on the ride. You're
Yeah.
not in the line thinking
No,
about it,
no.
which I love, which I absolutely love. What would you say intimacy particularly has personally taught you about yourself that you didn't expect?
Mm, mm.
Like, were there any fun surprises on this growth journey?
So many fun
Multiple?
surprises. I think like I think maybe what I didn't expect, and this sounds really simple now, but it maybe wouldn't have at the beginning of my journey, but how much wisdom there already is in my own body and my own,
Mm.
like, when I really learned how to listen to exactly what my body wants and learning how to ask for exactly what I wanted, and um how much that moves energy into the rest of my life. So like I'm talking about like intimacy in bed with my partner, right? But like being able to say like I want a little bit more pressure, or I want to slow down a little bit, like something that's very specific, and asking for that. It's not just empowering because I ask for it. It's like it takes the feeling of like, I think I want something, but I don't know what it is, and converts it into like, this is what I want, and here's how to be successful with me. And it's not just about him, but then I get to receive that thing I want. And then I walk into the rest of my life with that energy of like, I know how to feel what I want, say
Mm.
it, have him be successful with me, receive the thing, be grateful for it. This is like a whole cycle of connection with desire. And then I'm walking through my day and I'm like, I got it. I own it.
I
Right? Because
fucking
if I
got it.
can do that about my, about my pussy, my yoni, my clitoris, whatever, like then I can do it anywhere. And there's no greater access to that power of like the body that our culture has just like so much heaviness and shame around, like even
Mm.
naming those words, right, is such an edge. And like it's so empowering to be in relationship with those most sensitive things that like most people don't dare to think about, talk about, interact with their partner even about, right? And so like to learn how to, and this was like a very little or literal example for me, but when I learned this, intimacy practice at 24 years old, I was like, this just changes everything for me, and um absolutely changes how I approach intimacy of any kind at any moment, right? Whether it's friendship, intimacy, or sexual connection with my partner. That real experience of sovereignty and autonomy, and like being able to ask, claim, receive, have feel grateful, digest, and then go back and be like, and now I get to want more, right? And that's one of the things about plenty, is like receiving more. Like when we take that feeling of like, oh God, I could never ask him to slow down right now in the middle of sex because like I would be too much for asking for that. And then like when we get to ask for it and the sensation that we feel changes because we're expanding to receive something that's happening like that's arising literally between our bodies right now, and we're like slowing down in the moment to feel it. And I had the courage to say that, and then we did it, and then like what we both could feel expanded. I think physical sensation, I mean, I know for a fact physical sensation is not point A to point B. It's like right? Like that's the feminine, right? Masculine is point A to point B, and the feminine is like, and we don't know where we're going to end up, but we have all of these locations to travel on the way. And I think that experience for me as a woman of hearing that in my own body and being able to put language to it, and then stand up and walk through the rest of my day and be like, I can put language to what I desire, and then my desire is allowed to grow, and I can want more, and then I can put language to it again, and then I can receive it again. Like, there's nothing else in the world that's more powerful than that. And that can help me create everything I want in life.
God, I love that so much. There's so many things I could say to it, but I won't ruin everything you just said. But basically, what I've
Say
gathered,
whatever you want. Be too much. I love it.
yeah. I'm like, how do I put this in words? But I love that. It's like the intimacy in the bedroom, yes. But I like it's like if you're numbing yourself in the bedroom, if you're not speaking up in the bedroom, there's so many other areas in your life you're doing that, right? It's like
Totally.
I had a podcast episode a couple weeks ago about being a situationship with your life. You talked about earlier, it's like you're not committing to your life.
Yeah.
You're not actually being the full expression of who you came here to be. So
Yeah.
guess what? Your life is gonna be numb and dull, and but
It's going to
realize
reflect
that
right back to you. Yeah.
yeah, but we internally have that power, and we have so much infinite wisdom, right? We have so much knowledge, not just through books and things like that. That's external, like internally, when we're tapped in and when we're turned on and when we're onto it. It's like, sometimes I feel so excited about this stuff. And I feel like sometimes I don't know how to communicate it to people, to not like, do you not realize how fucking amazing this is?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
be
I
like
love that.
fully in love with your life.
And I think like one of the biggest takeaways for me from this lesson that I've been learning since, 18 years, um, is that like it's not just in the moments when everything feels so good, but
Yes.
the connection to your power is like being able to do that even in the moments where everything feels like it's awful and the world's ending and like you're getting exactly what you thought you didn't want. And like, how do I surrender there?
Mm.
Because if I can surrender there, then like it's easy to like surrender to life when it's like so good and you're like, on a Caribbean holiday and you're like having 10 orgasms a day and you're like having this beautiful whatever palm tree and bikini or I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever
I
the
love the
fantasy is.
picture you just
It's
painted.
easy to surrender to that, right? Like, because I'm having it all. And then, like, how do we also surrender to the mess and the darkness and the shadow part and the part we really weren't hoping not to have to go through, right? And I think at the beginning of the journey, it can feel like it's all going to be like that. And it isn't, but it takes, for me, like being in community with other women or being surrounded by women who have walked this path before, who have knowledge about it, who can say like, you're not alone, this is not going to be like hard forever, but what you're getting right now where it's hard is converting to power in the same way that it does when it's like shiny and looks good and feels like, oh, this is exactly how I thought it would be.
Absolutely. And I feel like, when everyone experiences stress, everyone has traumas of their own form, right? Life happens to people, right? Life is lifing. So it's not about, like you said, pretending that life's not going on and you're in this fantasy all the time, right?
Right.
But who are you when these things happen? Are you reactive? Are you actually so tuned in that although it's challenging, it's a season.
Yeah.
Although like this is coming up, I can get through it. I have the, strength. I have the courage. I have the whatever. So yeah, I think that's a really great thing to bring into the conversation because yeah, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say most of the time in my world it is, but life does happen.
I think it's like this, and like when we go all the way to the bottom, we increase like how high we can go at the
Yeah.
top, right? If we're willing to like that's I think we convert power when we're all the way at the bottom where it feels like the world's ending or the relationship's ending or whatever we thought we wanted is like having this mini death, right? And then in that place, I'm like, I have to tell myself, like, okay, this is going to convert to power. Like, I can't see how yet, but it is going to bring something back to me that I actually need to get to the next level of where I want to go. And so then, yeah, like, absolutely, my life is a ton of rainbows and butterflies, but they're there because I was willing to let myself be in that discomfort. And I would not have liked that lesson if you told me that at the beginning of my journey. I would have been like, well, I don't want that part. Like that part looks hard, but I needed it.
Well, I think it's like, yeah, you might experience a little bit of uncomfortableness, discomfort, a few little deaths here, but what you're growing into, what you're actually, the full spectrum of that. Like, I don't know, I feel like that definitely happens. People are too scared to move, to commit to, so they numb and they stay on this little plane. There's no growth there. It's
Right.
stagnation. Like your body needs to move, like your energy needs, you're meant to evolve. That is why you're here. That is literally why we're on this planet, is to evolve
Yeah.
as a soul. So yeah, I love this. Okay. I have absolutely loved this conversation. I would love for you to tell the audience what you're creating right now. What is this latest project that you're offering and what really called you to build this? I'm very excited about it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So right now I'm opening a year-long container that starts on April 1st for women who are local here in Northern California. I'm in Nevada County, between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. And yeah, so this program is called Plenty. It's for women who have had that experience of feeling like too much or not enough and want to convert that into the feeling of plenty and abundance and creating what they want in their lives, and they want to do that with me as a guide. And so I'm going to be coaching them for a full year, and they're going to be in a cohort of other women who are doing the same work, so we'll all be working together. And twice a month, we're going to go out to these beautiful, slow, luxurious European style dinners. I lived in Germany for a while. My husband's from Germany. So I'm like,
Amazing.
we need to eat like they do in Europe, where we take a really long time for every meal because we want to go deep. And in this container of plenty, we're practicing receiving. These are women who want to learn to receive more deeply in every arena of life. And so we're sitting around the table and I'm working individually with each woman, and everyone else is getting to witness and kind of learn for themselves as they witness the other women who are being coached, and getting to work on all of the places where they want to be reconnected with their own power. And then we also do 2 private retreats as a part of that experience. So it's a really in-depth, long-term commitment. It's a place to practice commitment.
Okay, there you go.
And it's really like committing to yourself. I think it's like each of the women there are committing to the identity of the woman that they are bringing through, the woman who is becoming inside of them, that we can't do transformation alone by ourselves in our closets. It just doesn't work. We have to have connection, community. And like, I think that's the most valuable part of the whole thing. I'm like, that right there is worth like triple what they're paying for it. Having community of other women who are also on this path and also working on themselves in this way, so powerful. And then a year of coaching from me, which is an amazing, amazing opportunity. And to be able to do it in a group of other women who are also wanting that shift is just unlike anything else. And I've done some things that are like this before, but I've never done it quite this long. And I'm really excited for the women who are already in and the women that are coming, because it's going to be just amazing.
It's gonna be so good. I'm so excited for you. What an
Yes.
incredible thing
And
to
what got, how did I get the idea, right?
yeah.
It's so funny. I was like, I was with my husband. We were on a date. We scheduled a date night. We have a 6-year-old child, so we have to schedule our date nights now. And and we had this like incredible, like powerful dropped in experience of sex with each other. And then we like took a bath together, and then we're like, let's go get burgers. And so we like in our little mountain town, like driving into town to go get burgers at 9 p.m. And we're sitting there eating our burgers, and I was like, I just like have this connection to myself, how like women initiate each other. And I was like, the reason that I'm here, the reason that I understand the things I do about my own growth and development, and like the power of like I'm laying in the bathtub in the forest, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I want a burger. Like, how do I do that? Right? Like that is so magical. And it's not just like getting from the bathtub to the burger restaurant, but I thought like there's so many places where we need women who are initiated to help walk us through and help us see what we can't see yet. And that I
Mm.
have had these women in my life who've done this for me, and I want to bring it to other women, and I want to help them have this for themselves.
Yeah, love that story, the bathtub burger story. That's a great one. That's where it all came in downloading.
Yeah.
I love that. So if women do want to connect with you further, where's the best place to reach you on Instagram? Or I'll put the
Yeah.
details in the show notes as well, but if you want to go ahead and tell them.
Yeah, on my Instagram, which is awakened_intimacy. And we have website also, which I'll give you for the show notes, and they can find me either place. Please DM me on Instagram. I love being on Instagram. I'm an elder millennial, so we're very into Instagram.
Love the gram. Wonderful. And for one last thing, for any of the women listening right now that do feel disconnected or numb from herself or her partner, just life, right? Where would you say is one place she can start today? So she can start integrating, just
Mm,
start her own journey, let's say.
yeah. I love this question. I would say like start a practice of 5 minutes a day, just doing something that is pleasurable for you. So it could be sitting in the sunshine, it could be meditating, it could be, I like to put my electrolytes into water and just like drink my electrolyte water, just sitting down and like enjoy what I'm doing, not like, and then I'm running this in my water bottle and running across town, but really just being in connection to listening to what your body wants and then offering it to yourself. And you can also do this in connection with the partner. So if you want to ask your partner, like, would you massage my hamstrings for a few minutes because they're really sore from the workout I did yesterday? But being really specific, whether you're with yourself or with a partner, about what you want so that you can create connection with that part of yourself and your desire.
I love that so much. Oh, Sasha, thank you so much for coming on. I have absolutely loved this conversation.
Thank
For
you, Ellen. It
anybody,
was such a pleasure to be on with you.
yeah, it's so good. I'm so glad we connected. For anyone listening on Spotify or Apple or any of those, you can also find the full interview on YouTube at the Fallon Frequency. So thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye.